1948, early 1949 at Mr. Rogers' Gladstone Hotel. The crowd started becoming so large. It was every Sunday that I did it. So I had to move to Hayes' Chicken Shack up on Louisiana Avenue, where Mr. Hayes had developed this new venue, which was very beautiful and a very challenging atmosphere, air conditioned, first class ability to just do so many nice things.
And where was Hayes' Chicken Shack?
Up on Louisiana Avenue.
Okay. And you were, I guess, playing records and playing jazz and blues?
Right, I started playing jazz and blues, and people started listening. Quiet as it's kept, since it was a white radio station at the time, WJBW, most of my listeners were white. Because before I started, the white listeners would listen to the white announcers because they didn't have any black announcers in New Orleans at that time.
Mm-hmm.
The only announcer that you had was O.C.W. Taylor, whom I regard as probably the godfather of radio broadcasting, because he started, I can't say exactly when, but he started before I did. But he was
From
doing,
where? Where was
he was broadcasting on WNOE. He also did a remote. He did the remote from up at Hayes' Chicken Shack also.
But were you the first black radio personality in New Orleans?
O.C.W. Taylor was, because
Okay.
it was on radio that he was broadcasting.
Hmm.
Now, I'll tell you something else again, too, now. We had people like Jack Willman, and the late Jack Willman and the late Earl Williams. They were the first live talents that I could recall on radio, because they were on O.C.W. Taylor's program. And they were singers.
Mm-hmm.
Jack Willman was a gospel singer, and quite naturally Earl Williams was a jazz and pop singer.
Okay.
Very talented person.
Now, you were getting paid for doing those Sunday broadcasts?
Right. I had to sell my own time.
Huh.
I had to go out and sell my own time.
But you were also working a full-time job, but this is all you were doing?
Well, no, I was working a full-time job. I was selling clothes down on Rampart Street.
What was the name of the shop?
At Best Tailors. And then part-time, I was writing a column in 1947 for the old Informer Sentinel, which had an office up on Dryad Street in the Louisiana Life Building. And it was a paper out of Texas. It was owned by a Texas firm. That was the time when they had the Pittsburgh Courier, they had the Chicago Defender, the Louisiana Weekly, and those were the black papers that were catering to the New Orleans black market at the time.
What kind of stuff were you writing in your column?
I was writing live entertainment. I would go to the Dewdrop, to the Robin Hood. I would go to all of the various clubs, Club Desire, just wherever they had some live entertainment and some excitement. I covered all of that. The Sundown Supper Club, which was one of the big attractions, where we would start like 12 o'clock midnight and stay up all morning. That was sponsored by by Jimmy Willis and the Pittsburgh Courier. We would stay up all night with live bands, live entertainments, Fats Domino, you name it, Dave Bartholomew. They just let it all hang out. That's when you could stay up all night. You didn't have all that crime and killing and whatnot.
Yeah.
See, I'm talking about a period which segregation was rather prominent, and we had about 3,000 more bars and lounges owned by black people, and had the entertainment. Coleman's over in Algiers, you had Jesse's up in Marrero, and you had the clubs on this side of the river.
Why were you working so many jobs?
Well, remember, the cost of living was cheap. Coca-Cola was a nickel, telephone was a nickel. When I got married, gas was 11 cents a gallon, 11 and a half cents a gallon. You could stay up all night. A half a pint of liquor was 50 cents, and you got a Coca-Cola and a 7-Up in the 1940s and the early 50s. You got a half a pint of liquor. You got a pitcher of water, Coke and a 7-Up or whatever else she wanted.
Yeah.
Bottle of champagne was $1.25.
Hmm.
How you like that?
Did white DJs have to sell their own time as well?
No, they were organized and programmed because they were handled by agencies and the station themselves who had people who would go out and sell the time. Then not only that, they had a union. We didn't have a union. And blacks at that time couldn't even, not in the South, couldn't join the union. Later on, some of the disc jockeys joined unions, but not in New Orleans. I still don't know of a union here right now where there's a union.
Okay, that takes us through the 50s. At what point did you ever do radio full time, or were you always?
Yeah, well, now here's what happened. After working part time in 1948 and 49, 1950, Ernie Bronje, who was called Ernie the Whip, he and I went to high school and college together. Ernie was the person who was hired by WMRY, which is now WYLD. They had an office space down in the French Quarter, in the Court of Two Sisters. So they had an agency that had heard about me, and they knew that I was selling my own time. It was called a care agency, and they hired me, and they stopped me. Well, I didn't have to sell anymore. They started selling the time, and they started paying me.
When was this?
This was in 1950. So sometime in October 1950, my station, the program went over so well until management at the station said, well, look, we'd like to hire you full time. So between the station and care, and I said, now let's see how the money's going to come. So I said, well, cares would sell my time. The station's going to sell the time, going to pay me a salary, and I don't have to worry about anything. So I just went full time with the station, and I was on every day, and I started doing a program called Tipping with Tex. And then I started doing what is known as a soft, cool jazz show in the evening, which goes in the cool of the evening. Mr. Cool will dish out the good old underplunder, so stick around, cool it, and let it all hang out, because after all, time is money. And if you want to live with the women, you got to get the honey. That's the way I used to do that.
Wait, say that again. In the cool of the
evening, when they dish out the good old underplunder, Mr. Cool.
Wait, I need you to slow down.
In the cool of the evening. Let me see. Hold just a minute. In the cool of the evening, Mr. Cool would dish out the good old underplunder. So we ask you to stick around, because after all, I have the right kind of sound. Cool evening, Mr. Cool would dish out the good old underplunder. Stick around, because we're going to lay on you the right kind of sound. I would change it somewhat a little bit.
In the cool of the evening, Mr. Cool will dish out
the good old underplunder. The right kind of sound. So we want you to stick around. So we want you to stick around. I'm sure many of the old timers still alive. They remember. Then, people started coming to the station. Sometimes they would sit in the studio and watch Ernie and myself, and people from out of town, because, see, we were reaching out into the outlying parishes, St. Bernard, Jefferson, St. Charles, St. James, and then we started making personal appearances out of town, and then myself, people were sending for us to make, that's all right, I can handle. But you want to look at that?
No, I want to take it because it's coming out on the tape.
Oh,
you keep
all
moving
right.
it. That's all I'm saying. I just want to.
All right, good enough.
Let me ask you now. Tipping with Tex. What time would that come on?
That would come on like 10:30 in the morning, and the late show would come on around about 5:30 in the evening, when people would be coming home from work or getting ready to dine with the families, and that's when we would play the cool type jazz.
Now, how long would the shows last? 10:30 to what?
That would run for about, each show ran for about a half hour.
Okay.
And then After in 1951, I think we started going on 1 hour because we started getting more commercial advertising.
Okay.
At one time, the station used to pay us for a 15-minute program. We were making low money. But then, as time went on, for the 1 hour show, well, we started making more money because we had more advertising at that time. I think we were making $50 to $75 a week, which was a lot of money right then and there. And when you made $100 a week back then in the late 40s and early 50s, that was nice money. And then somewhere in time, this is a strange thing that really happened. Now, WBOK went on the air right after us, and James W. Smith, better known as Okie Dokie, was the headliner there. He and Honey Boy Hardy played the jazz, and incidentally, both stations were integrated when we first started. WMRY was integrated. They had white announcers, and somewhere in time, Mort Silverman took over the radio station at WMRY and got rid of all of the white announcers and started hiring other people. Then came Malcolm LaPlace, who generally handled the news. Bob Parker was a MC up at the Dewdrop. He joined. And Percy Simpson, who was pastor of the Greater St. Stephen, without the S, Baptist Church. He was our first gospel announcer. So focus on.
Uncle Tex, I need to get the stations correct, because it looks like when you went on full time in 1950, what station was that?
That was WMRY.
Which is the second station you worked at.
Right.
Okay.
See, I left WJBW in 1949.
Gotcha. Okay. Now, how long did you stay at WMRY?
I stayed at WMRY for about I guess you can say about 10 years.
Okay. And when you say it was integrated, that means you were broadcasting from the studio?
Right, I was broadcasting from the studio in the French Quarter with the white folks then. As long as I was on WJBW, I couldn't go into the station. That was another thing. See, the Quarter Two Sisters was a restaurant, and I mean we had beautiful facilities down there. I really hated to see them move in a sense because the management, from time to time, would even send food out to us.
And you were treated like the white DJs? I mean,
treated just like the white DJs.
Okay. Now, that brings us to about 1960.
All right, 1960. All righty, I worked from 1950 up until 1962. Then I went to work for Ebony Magazine.
Now, let me ask you this. Rudy was saying that you used to broadcast information about the Civil Rights Movement on the radio.
Sure did.
When was that? That was, I guess, before 62?
That was before 62. You see, even though while I was working at Ebony Magazine, I was still on the air, I started doing what was known as a news program. See, at that time, my good friends, Bob Collins and my personal lawyer, Lolis, Elie Sr., had an office up on Dryad Street. So while they were doing the dirty work and the legal work, I would go out there and cover the marches up and down Dryad Street when they had all those stores, and then I covered the march up there on South Claiborne Avenue. I wasn't disc jockeying anymore. I was doing news because what I did, I really quit the station and I went back to sell time for myself because I could make more money by selling my own time. And you know what? I didn't have to work every day. All I had to do just go on Sunday and do my own time. See, I'm the first black in the city of New Orleans, I guess in the state of Louisiana, to have a written contract with the white radio station. I know I'm the first one. I don't know about any others having contract. And
We need to be gone.
yeah, we still got time.
Okay,
I think we got about another 12 minutes. We can do it.
good enough. And how long were you with Ebony?
I stayed with Elie 10 years, from 62 to 72.
Selling ads or selling
No,
subscription?
I did market research and feasibility studies.
On what type of stuff? What kind of things?
In other words, what I would do, Ebony would send me out. I first started working in New York. What they did, the late Leroy Jeffers, who was vice president, while I was working, Ebony gave me the job, but they sent me to work with McCann Erickson and to develop strategists, professional strategists, and a couple of other agencies out of New York. And I became very good at what I was doing. Like I said, I had a college background. I had 2 years college, and that I had street smarts also, because coming out of a poor neighborhood, I had to know some dirty tricks and things like that. Well, anyway, I was put on assignment to travel after working with the various agencies. And incidentally, while I was in New York, I was so good working with the 3 different agencies, I won the Wright Fowler Award for market research and feasibility studies. All right. Now, so my first assignment, this is to lay it out. First assignment was to come to Mississippi in 1962. That was when Goodman and the other people, the civil rights workers were murdered. So what happened? New York had called the Jackson Hotel to make reservations for me. Of course, the clerk sounded like she was white, so they didn't know whether I was white or black coming in. So as soon as, well, to make a long story short, the FBI was on the same plane with me, coming to investigate in Jackson, Mississippi, which is the capital of the state, all right? So all of us got off at the same time, and it was cold. I got my overcoat on. I got an attaché case, just like the FBI. And so, they had other whites around there looking. Must be nigga FBI with these whites and so forth. And I guess I scared a lot of people. So when I checked into the hotel, I told them, I said, I'm Mr. Stevens. I'm having a room that was registered from New York. Let me say, Stevens. So the clerk, she kind of looked at me. She went in the office. She stayed about 10 minutes. Then she went to another office, I guess, to talk to the head manager or whatever. So I guess he said, well, look, they got these FBI people here, and he's here, so we don't want no trouble. I guess they give the nigga the room. Nah. So that same night, this sounds like a joke, but this is the truth. I went to the YMCA because, I didn't know of any black bars and so forth. So they had a meeting, a civil rights meeting at the YMCA. A fellow by the name of Mickey Tucker was playing jazz piano downstairs. But in the meantime, when Mickey cut off playing the music, some minister came to the YMCA, and he started talking about God and so forth and so on. And I'm going to make a joke out of it, but it's the truth. And he started quoting phrases from the Bible, and he got to that point about Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and they had this white sheriff down there. So he left, and another sheriff took his place. Said, I'm going to the office. Well, this is the joke part of it. So he goes back to the executive office where the head sheriff is supposed to be. Look here, sheriff. They got a nigga preaching down at the YMCA, and he could create a whole lot of problems down there. And boy, we better get ready. So the head sheriff said, what you mean? I'm just trying to find out who's this badass nigga in the Bible. He talking about some Shadrach and Meshach and some bad Negro. Now tell me who that nigga is. I made a joke out of it. But it really happened. But I made a joke out of it. Then the sheriff did leave. But I'm really making a joke out of it. But I stayed there for about a week. And I had to go to Jackson State University to do a special type of promotion. I'll tell you what happened.
Hold on. When you were doing Goodman, Cheney, and Swan, were you writing a story then? Or?
No. I was assigned to the marketing department, see, and I had to go to the various stores and the supermarkets to promote Borden's milk at that time. That was my first official assignment, and it was a fellow by the name of Jack. I'm trying to think of his last name. Well, he was the black guy who was working with the milk company. He met me. He came over to the hotel to show me around Jackson, so I could talk to the various stores. Well, you know, I was always immaculate, like I always, and I didn't have too much of a problem because you know, I knew how to deal with the white equation, and so eventually I went over to Jackson State, and what they did when I told them I was from Ebony Magazine, they had some other milk in there. But when I told them that I was representing Ebony Magazine in Borden, well, the manager of the cafeteria just started ordering all the Borden products, the cream cheeses, the milk, just whatever Borden was selling. And when I made the report back to New York, boy, they were tickled to death because Borden increased its advertising space in the make. Say, hey, we better do more about that, because then remember they had other blacks working, like in Chicago, New York. I'm covering now. As time went on, I covered Louisiana, Mississippi. I covered parts of Alabama, Arkansas, and Texas. And so eventually, I started getting a bit of notoriety with the New York crowd. Now here's what happened. Well, you know, the boys in New York, they talk all that sophisticated talk about this, that, and the other, so forth, and how stupid people are in the South. So I told them, I said, baby, I got a house off the lakefront. That was before I put this addition. I say, I'm buying it, but these niggas, they live in high-rise apartments, and they don't own nothing. So I just had to get them all straightened out. I say, we Southerners, some of us can handle it much better than you whites can. I said, look, you're living up here, you don't own nothing. So I just let it all hang out on the ass, you know. And then my supervisor, he didn't take a liking to me, but now here what happened.
Let me stop you, because if we're going to do this, we need to. Well, how long did you work with Ebony?
I worked for 10 years.
Okay, so then about 1972, what did you do?
72, I went back into the real estate business, but in the meantime, see, I had taken the real estate examination. I passed it in 1962 also. I didn't know whether I was going to get the job with Emily, but I got it. Well, anyhow.
Did you do any radio in the 70s?
Yeah. I was doing news on the weekend once a week.
With who?
I was working on old WMRY, which was now WYLD.
Okay.
And then in the meantime, now comes 1963. All right. Now, Patty Ryan, a white guy who was working at educational television, was WYES, Jackson Brewing Company. They wanted to do some things in athletics, and they wanted to broadcast the high school football, baseball games, and so forth and so on. So somehow or another, Billy Willis and a few other people recommended me, and they hired me at the television station to broadcast with the late Mel Levitt. So I started doing live football, live baseball.
Was it 63?
In 63. I got all the
high
pictures.
High school or what?
Nothing but high school.
Okay. And these were black schools?
Just black schools.
Okay.
See, they hadn't officially integrated the black and white high schools together. And you got to remember, too, you had a black teachers union over here on one side. You had a white teachers union, which your mother was in on one side with the black, and you had others on the white. So there's a lot of history here, Rick.
In terms of radio in the 70s, what were you doing?
No, I was still doing news.
Okay.
I hadn't done any more disc jockey work. All I was doing news and selling my own time while I was working with Ebony because I was making more money. See, the cost of living was beginning to increase at that time, and you got the coming of integration too because your daddy was raising hell up there because I could show you some things that your daddy had done. A meeting that we had gone to back there in 1959. I got it someplace, but you'd have to come back and look at it. And so what I did, I'm still selling time. Eventually, I had to quit the radio station because Johnson was putting pressure on me. I made one mistake. I told him what I was doing. I told him I was like, he said, he called me one day and said, Mr. Stevens, you can't serve two masters. Well, I'm making more money working with Ebony. So,
did you ever get back to DJing?
No, never did.
So you basically been doing
yes, I did. Part-time at what is this? I work part-time at WWOZ. Yeah, I even sit in. Otherwise, I sit in now and then. It wasn't a job. I just volunteer to sit in every now and then playing jazz.